旅人さん。
Magic.
ご冗談を。
Our first 5-star character guide is the one and only Kamisato Ayaka, voiced by Saori
あ
Hayami.
ら、
Ayaka is a top tier cryo DPS and is a really great F2P friendly character. She can dish out a huge amount of damage even with the Inazuma craftable weapon, and she is one of the best characters to be used in a freeze comp. She is one of those characters whose entire kit is useful, and I would suggest focusing on all 3 of her talents, starting off with her normal attacks. You will need to level up her normal attacks as her alternate sprint will infuse her normal attacks and charge attacks with cryo. Her charge attacks has range to it as well. As you can see here, I'm quite far away from the enemy, but it still hits them, and that too dealing quite a good amount of damage. Her charge attack damage can be boosted even further by 2 ways. I'll tell you how in a minute. Her elemental skill is quite straightforward. Press a button to deal damage. Her elemental burst summons an icy storm that slashes at every enemy it touches. It moves forward if there are no enemies in the path, and it stops if any enemy is caught in its path. At the end of its duration, it explodes, dealing AoE cryo damage. Her burst costs 80 energy, so running her with a cryo battery like Diona or Rosaria would be suggested to get her burst back up on cooldown every single rotation. Ayaka also has quite a unique sprint. When she sprints, she cloaks herself in a frozen fog, and when she reappears, she does 2 things. Applies cryo on the nearby enemies and infuses her normal and charge attacks with cryo. Now talking about her Ascension Talents. Her Ascension Talents revolve around boosting her charged attacks. At Ascension level 1, after using her elemental skill, Ayaka's normal and charge attack deal 30% more damage for 6 seconds. At Ascension 4, when Ayaka comes out of her alternate sprint and applies cryo on the enemy, it restores 10 stamina and increases her cryo damage by 18% for 10 seconds. And her passive talent is, it gives her a 10% chance to double the product while crafting weapon ascension materials. So, the way you would wanna play Ayaka will be apply cryo on the enemies with her alternate sprint, use her elemental burst, use her skill, apply cryo again with her alternate sprint, and then use her charge attacks. Her talent priority will be her burst, followed by her normals, and then her elemental skill. You can even level them all up to level 8 or level 9, and if you feel like it, you can use a crown on her burst. Since she's a 5-star, I would not recommend you to spend any money for her constellations, and on top of that, she does a lot of damage at C0, and getting her constellations is not recommended. But anyway, for any of my Ayaka lovers and whales out there, the best constellation to get for her would be her C4 and her C6. As defense reduction is a really uncommon mechanism in Genshin, and at her C4, opponents hit by her elemental burst have their defense decreased by 30% for 6 seconds. 30% is really huge. At C6, Ayaka gains a buff every 10 seconds that increases her charge attack damage by 298%. Yes, it increases her charge attack damage by 298%. This buff will be lost 0.5 seconds after her charge attack hits an enemy, and the 10-second timer will be reset again. The remaining constellations are as follows. Her C3 increases the level of her elemental burst by 3. Her C5 increases the level of her elemental skill by 3. At C1, when her normal and charge attacks deal cryo damage, it has a 50% chance to reduce the cooldown of her elemental skill by 0.3 seconds. And this can be triggered once every 0.1 second. And finally at C2, her elemental burst unleashes 2 smaller additional icy storms that deal 20% of the original icy storm's damage. So if you want a stopping point for her constellations, I would suggest C2. C2 के बाद और पैसा खर्च मत करो. But if you're a whale, like I suggested, C4 or C6 are the best ones. Now coming to the best artifact sets for her and what stats to prioritize. As most of the team comps for Ayaka involve the freeze reaction, the best in slot for Ayaka would be the 4-piece Blizzard Strayer set. With this set, you would be aiming for crit damage and energy recharge. The ideal stats for her would be 2k plus attack, and ratio for her with a 4-piece Blizzard would be 30% crit rate and 215% crit damage minimum. Anything above 215 crit damage would also be great for your Ayaka. And you will need at least 130 to 140 energy recharge for her with a cryo battery. Diana recommended. Other viable set for her would be 2-piece Blizzard Strayer and 2-piece of any attack giving sets. Why does it sound like sex? You can also use 2-piece Blizzard Strayer and 2-piece Emblem if you lack 2-piece attack giving set. And the last notable mention would be the 4-piece Emblem set. Keep in mind that this is not the best set for her, but it's still viable to some extent. Next up, let's talk about the weapons for Ayaka. I'll start off with the best in slot free-to-play weapon for her. The Inazuma Craftable Sword Ame no Ma Kageochi is the best 4-star sword you can use for her. The refinements for this weapon are great as well, as the passive helps you to generate a lot of energy and get her burst back up on cooldown. I would suggest you to stop at R3 or R4. R5 is overkill for this weapon. Another great 4-star weapon for her would be the Blackcliff Sword. It has crit damage as a secondary stat and gives attacks from its passive. This sword can help you go beyond 230 crit damage on a 4-piece Blizzard Strayer build. Now, if we talk about the 5-star swords, the best in slot for her is obviously her signature weapon, Mist Splitter Reforged, followed by the Jade Cutter. You can also run the Summit Shaper for a higher attack stat, and the last recommendation would be to use the Skyward Blade with the 4-piece emblem set. Finally, the team comps for her. She shines the best in perma-freeze teams. The best known team for her is the Muryana Team. It's a variation of the Morgana Team, where you use Ayaka instead of Ganyu. The team consists of Ayaka, Mona Venti and Diona. A small variation for this team would be using Xingqiu instead of Mona. Another suggestion for my F2P friends out there would be the team consisting of Ayaka, Xingqiu, Kaya and Sucrose. If you have Kazuha, you can switch Kazuha with Sucrose. Last freeze team recommendation would be the team that has Ayaka, Venti, Kokomi and Ganyu. One last team would be the Melt team that consists Ayaka, Shangling, Bennett and Zhongli. So, I hope this guide was useful for you. Feel free to mention anything that you think we might have missed out on. And also do check out on the other character guides we have on our channel. You can also catch me streaming most nights, so be sure to drop by and say hi anytime you feel like it. That's it from our side. We'll see you guys next time. Until then, take care, stay safe. Bye bye.